What is up, Packers fans? Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. We are presented to you today by Luigi's Pizza. It was a great victory pizza on Monday. I had it the day after. Ultra thin crust pepperoni, my favorite. Go check out Luigi's over at luigispizza.com and on social media at Luigi's Pizza. It is Tuesday, which usually means Justis Mosqueda. I lied to you and said that Justis would be joining us on Thursday. Now, that is going to happen starting next week, but we are switching things up a little bit. Mike Wall was actually at the game, so had to reorganize a couple things this week. Appreciate Justis being flexible. You, of course, can find him at acmepackingcompany.com and on social media at JUMOSQ. Justis, that's a long way of saying welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. We beat the Detroit Lions, so what's not to like, right? I mean, I know Lions fans today are like, you're Super Bowl, buddy. Every game is the Super Bowl from here for like the next 3 years. Like we need to win every single one of them or people are going to get upset.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're 100% correct. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it felt like a massive game. It had a big game fight feel to it. And I don't freaking care what it was. I'm happy to pick up the win. I'm happy to watch Minnesota and Chicago go back and forth in the weirdest game. And yeah, this is just a really fun week of football. And I'm really happy with Green Bay and where they're at after a week of it. I don't have to apologize to anyone. That was freaking awesome. I loved every second of this weekend.
Yeah, it was great. I thought the team, especially on the defense, looks really prepared. I guess on the offensive side too. Did you see Dan Campbell's quotes about the team?
I did not.
So he was like, offensive side of the ball, Packers had a lot of early answers. They tried to do a bunch of inside blitzes, and the Packers were just picking them up in part because of their pass protection from their backs and stuff like that. Then they had to straight rush, right? Just send 4. It got them out of their run blitzes, and I think that's kind of when you saw, Josh Jacobs. Defensively, it was, they thought that they could just take what the defense gives them. They play a lot of deep zones and all that stuff, and that just wasn't the case. Jahmyr Gibbs, 10 receptions, 31 yards, lowest receiving yards total ever by any player in the history of the NFL that has ever caught 10 balls in a game. I made a cut up. I posted on Twitter during the Monday Night Football game of all the Gibbs receptions. I mean, they're just good tacklers right now, man. Like that's really what it is. I mean, I know people want to do like a, stock up, stock down thing. I don't think there was like a crazy dominant performance on the defensive side that just like completely tilted the game. It was more just like as a unit, like everyone's just making one-on-one tackles. A lot of guys were flying to the football. And I think that really changed things, especially against this Detroit team, right? So They want to play man. How do they get to play man? They get to play man because they blitz. Okay, we shut down their blitzes because Josh Jacobs and Chris Brooks are really good pass blockers. I have a clip that I posted on Twitter this morning. I think it was first drive. So you get the double mugged linebackers, right? So they walk up to the A gaps. Chris Brooks takes one of them. He ends up stunting. He passes him off, and Chris Brooks, a running back, picks up a defensive tackle and just anchors against a defensive tackle.
Yep.
Right. That was the end cut from Wicks that ended up going like 13 yards or whatever. Obviously our first down. They messed with Goff a lot. I think a lot of that helps with, the fact that you have all these pass rushers on the field. I do think LVN is taking the step up. Micah Parsons was a difference maker, all that stuff. The interception that Evan Williams had, I think everyone saw it. Quick pressure, Micah Parsons against Penei Sewell, right? Sewell's a top minimum 2 right tackle in football right now. It's either him or Lane, right? Gets quick pressure on him. It looks like it's like either cover 1 or cover 3 pre-snap. It ends up being cover 3, but Williams was playing the deep post, and he ends up buzzing down into the hook. So, Bullard is playing the slot. Bullard buzzes out to the flat, and it opens up this window in the slot. Goff is just ripping it in there, but because Williams just like triggers, instantly. I mean, he makes that pick on, basically like a short curl out of the slot from a deep post position pre-snap. Yeah, pretty incredible stuff, man. I think the good news is like this hasn't been like the old kind of Packers start, because it felt like the old Packers starts. It's almost like we're starting like day one of the playbook all over again,
Yep.
right? And it's like we have to tinker with all this stuff, and we got to get all this stuff right. This year, it actually feels like a continuation from what they did last season, and I think that's buddy, we needed that.
Yeah.
We needed that bad. So whatever they did this offseason to get these guys prepared, it seems like it's working right. Obviously injuries are going to stack up, all those things. You're going to have to throw tendency breakers out there and adjust to what other teams are doing and things like that. But for this Lions game, extremely prepared, extremely ready to play football. I think there still are like flaws on this roster, especially like just looking at the snap counts and stuff like that. I went through and on I guess Sunday night through Monday morning, because it definitely bled into Monday morning, I hand charted where everyone lined up, offense, defense, and try to figure out what this team is doing, right? Just like where are they playing players? Because you can look at the snap counts, but the snap counts can only tell you so. It only tells you how long guys are on the field. It doesn't tell you where they're lining up, anything like that. And I'm a little worried about the depth of the defensive line right now because of a couple of things, like the Sorrell injury, the Cox injury, Micah Parsons not, being full force at this point. Definitely still, it looks like, he's still getting into football shape. And I don't think you can get into football shape without being in training camp or playing football. Like that's what everyone has said. And I've seen it like XFL wise and stuff like that too. Nasir Stackhouse not eating a bunch of snaps. So that's 4 guys that you're keeping on your 53 who are not eating a bunch of snaps for you on game day. Now I know Cox went out like mid third quarter. I think it was like 7 minutes left or something like that in the third quarter. But I do think that it kind of puts a pressure point onto this Packers team. I think if Detroit would have not gone down super early and they just could have like ran the ball for a while, our defensive line depth would have been tested a lot just because of like the construction of the team. I mean, This is to make it simple. The Packers are really used to having like 4 or 5 guys at defensive end and defensive tackle that they can just like any down and distance, you can pretty much play them. Right. And right now they got about 3 at each position. So things are getting pretty thin at those spots. Now, Sorrell is going to be healthy at some point. Cox isn't going to be in game day active and then miss the last quarter and a half of a game. Parsons is going to be more involved moving forward, you would think. But even Matt said like they weren't planning on playing Micah Parsons that much, and they just kind of had to. And I think it made a lot of sense. I mean, I think it was like 13 of his 29 snaps came in the last 16 plays of the game when Detroit was basically just in, you're in hurry up. The Packers are playing you in nickel. They don't care if you have 3 tight ends out there. They're just like, yeah, dude, we're not going to give you a quick score. We're playing the clock at this point. But I think Parsons had to play those snaps because they had to keep those guys fresh, or they were just going to wear them down by Thursday. Now, the good news is if you're like, all right, short week coming off of that, you had to play a bunch of guys, a bunch of snaps. What's the NFL team that you want to play? It's probably an offense coached by Cliff Kingsbury, the guy who's used to like air raid and is not like, he's not going under center I formation with 2 tight ends, a fullback and a running back, right? Just one receiver on the field. That's just not what he does. So I do think that kind of breaks in their favor. It was a risk. It's a risk that the Packers took, and it ended up paying out for them. So, but boy, I bet buttholes were tight when they were trying to decide what their 53 was going to look like, or their 48 was going to look like coming into this game.
Yeah, I think so too. It was one of the more interesting things. I thought Brinson would be active just to have the extra defensive tackle, out there. I also found it interesting. I'm wondering with Barron Sorrell, because they had 5 active defensive ends, right? Because they had Enigbare, Parsons, Gary, LVN, and Bretton Cox. So they had 5 defensive ends. I wonder if Sorrell was good enough to play, but like you're probably just not calling up or having 6 defensive ends active on their roster. They also could have called up Mosby as well, who would also be an option this week if they wanted to go in that direction too. Just saying, like they could do some different things there. But I was very intrigued that they did not call up or not at least have active Brinson in that game. I would have thought maybe they could have gone with 5 wide receivers instead or something like that. But guess if Savion's going to be your kick returner, it complicates things a little bit.
Yeah, and that's a super weird one because if you look at the snap count, Savion Williams, it'll show up like 3 snaps or something like that on offense. It was 1 snap. I mean, so he got on the jet sweep, right? We saw that. He got on the Emmanuel Wilson carry, which the Packers that final drive, right? All the Packers were doing on that carry where they were testing whether the Lions were going to call their timeouts to end that game and continue to play football. And then when the Lions didn't call the timeout, they just ended up kneeling out the game.
Down.
Those last 2 snaps came there. It was the kneel and it was the Emmanuel Wilson carry, and that's the only play that like Emmanuel Wilson was on the field. It was pretty much backups that were out there. They were just trying to get the clock going. So Williams really isn't like involved in the offensive game plan at all outside of that 1 jet sweep that he got. So he's just on the team to be a kick returner. He doesn't play anywhere else on special teams. He's just there to be a kick returner. I thought that was interesting. I don't know how long they can keep that up. We talked about this in the preseason, right? Where we're like, hey, man, this roster pinch is going to come out somehow. Like you set your 53, but 5 of those guys have to be inactive on game day. I don't know what they would have done with Sorrell if he were like fully healthy. I think they would have had Zane in if he was healthy. They obviously would have had Hobbs in if he was healthy. So we're talking about, hey, man, 2 guys got to come off that list of the 48. Now, it helps that Micah Robinson was called up because that's an easy one that you can knock off. Robinson played 0 snaps, not just defense, because none of the backup corners played on defense. Played 0 snaps on the entire team. So I don't know why they chose to exhaust one of his 3 call-ups during the season for that. They had Haddon. He played 2 special team snaps, doesn't really contribute much there. Bo Melton plays a ton. Who knows about his injury status? Haddon will probably have to play a lot more special teams moving forward. But you would think, you have Micah Robinson and you don't sub out Xavier McKinney on special teams, right? Like they had the option. They're like, hey, we have another body at cornerback, 2 bodies really, Haddon and Robinson. And they're like, no, we still want to play all these safeties, right? So I think that's another hint that like when Zane's active, Zane's coming up to the 48 because they cannot get enough of safeties and linebackers.
And obviously some of the injuries will play a part in this as well if some of these guys can't get back. But there could be some different, they're probably going to need Donovan Jennings, or at least they could if one of these guys is out injured. If both of them are, they might need to call somebody up. So there's a lot of roster logistics.
Yeah, because you get a freebie. Because the way it works, right, it's actually a 47-man active roster. But you get the extra bonus 1 if you have 8 offensive linemen. So the NFL just basically ensures that you keep 8 offensive linemen on your game day roster. So if we're out 2, we got 9 on the game day roster or on the 53. Someone's getting called up because it's a freebie. Like why not? You're giving us an extra player. So
the Brant Banks era is upon us potentially this upcoming week. We shall see. There's so much that you mentioned that I want to get into and break down. I want to start on the defensive side of the ball because you brought up something that I thought very similarly. In the immediate post game, my player of the game for Green Bay was Jeff Hafley because it felt extremely well organized, extremely well orchestrated. And to your point, I thought, Evan Williams had a great day. I thought Micah Parsons had a big impact. I thought, obviously, Edge Cooper had a really nice day as well. But it felt like everyone was extremely cohesive and kind of to your there was no 1A performance. It just felt like it was the defense in totality. I've seen some people say hey, there were some plays that they gave up or maybe the PFF grades didn't exactly match the defensive. I was 1,000,000% with you in the fact that I felt like it was just a really sound cohesive defensive performance altogether. And it may not have, showed well in the box score and the PFF grades or things like that, but those guys were flying around, making things complicated, covering up everything deep, making them check everything down, then rallying to the football, tackling. It was just pure good team defense. And if this team is going to play good pure team defense week in and week out, I really don't care who's in, who's out, who's, getting the good grades, who's not. It just felt like that was something that has the ability to be sustainable because of the brand of football they're playing, not just because of the players that are on the field.
100%, man. So I'm going to give you an example of a reason why I think they were super prepared, right? And juxtapose it to stuff that we've seen in the past. There was one of the Jahmyr Gibbs receptions where if you look at the tight copy, you can see everyone talking, but they're in shotgun, single back, motion out to empty. You see everyone who's off of the line of scrimmage, right, is hey, check. This is an empty check. We can't run the play that was called, right? Then Gibbs motions back in, and they're all, reload. The blitz is back on. Carrington Valentine ends up, he's on the X receiver, singled up, and he ends up coming on the blitz.
Yep.
We're a couple years removed from Joe Barry being we can't communicate on a football field. We can't have.
He said it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the turning point with Joe Barry when he said that, was oh man, if you guys are that Stone Age,
it's over.
From a check standpoint. It's over because you've been in this long enough. People have film, so you're done as a play caller. So yeah, I mean, I think that was great. They know how to get their guys in right positions. They're trying stuff. I don't know if people realize there was 2.5 benchings in this game on the defensive side. So Bullard starts at safety, which is a surprise because I think everyone thought it was going to be Evan Williams. Bullard starts at safety and their 4-3 looks, right? And nickel, it doesn't matter because he's going to kick into the slot anyway, and Evan Williams is going to play safety. But Bullard gives up, I think it was a slant to Amon-Ra St. Brown in man coverage or something like that. They, from that point on, deleted. Done. Evan Williams is in the game at safety. So I thought that was interesting. And then they ended up going back to Bullard late in the game. So those are your 2 benchings, if you want to call them that. The other thing, the Packers' last snap, which is the play that Brenton Cox went down on, in 4-3 defense, Tyron Hopper actually subbed in for Isaiah Simmons or Isaiah McDuffie, as the third linebacker. Now the Packers didn't end up playing 4-3 for the rest of the game because they were just we're just going to sit in nickel and we're just going to protect, deep passing game. We're playing the clock, all that stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised, if we see some sort of shakeups at that third linebacker spot, the safety spot. It seems like they're willing to at least try stuff in those positions. And then obviously the Hobbs of it all, and what does the secondary even look like when Hobbs comes back in and all that stuff. Because if you look at the pure snap counts, right, and even if you have detailed information about safety, Evan Williams outsnapped Javon Bullard 54-12 at the safety position. Okay.
Yep.
But when they're in 4-3 looks, Bullard outsnapped Williams 12-5. So that's why those things can get tricky, because you're counting. They played so much nickel in this game, especially after the first 2 drives, because they were just trying to protect the pass. That you didn't get a lot of look at their base defense. But at the beginning of the game, they were playing a lot more base than you're used to. They were cool with playing 3 linebackers against your 3 receivers and just kind of dealing with whatever the slot situation was going to be. So I don't know what that looks like moving forward. That's something Hafley hasn't really done outside of one of the Lions games last year. So this could just be a one-off with Lions stuff where it's we know we're going to have to stop the run. We got to do it against the Lions. But it's something I'm definitely interested, moving forward. On the offensive side, This was their personnel on the first 9 plays of the game. 12, 21, 12, 12, 11, 13, 21, 11, 21, 12.
I love that
That's a
so
lot
much.
of 2 tight end, 2 running back sets, man. That's who they want to be. And that's going to cost a lot of slot receiver reps. And Jaden Reed at this point is still just a slot receiver to that team. Overall, they played 29 snaps in 1 or 2 receiver sets and only 18 in 3 receiver sets. And again, I showed like the first 9 plays of the game, right? This wasn't just like end of the game, they put in a bunch of tight ends, they're running the ball because they had the lead. No, they opened up the game being like, we want to be heavier on the offensive side. We don't need the slot receiver. And just keep that in mind, man, because LaFleur, when he has the tight ends, he's used the tight ends. So
I want to go back to Bullard for a second. So I had a hypothesis going in. I didn't know what they were going to do, and I have a theory on it. It could be 1,000,000% wrong. I don't know this for any level of certainty. It could have been a benching. It could have been a changing up or whatever. I personally believe, this is just my belief. I believe that Bullard is really good coming down from safety and stopping the run. I think it's actually one of the things that he does better than Evan Williams. I think Evan Williams is the pure better cover player. I think Bullard does a really nice job of coming from depth. And one of the things I talked about going back to the offseason is I said, I think there's a chance that in base defense, you could see Bullard as the safety next to Xavier McKinney. And we did see that in camp from time to time, is what they did. And so when they came out with Bullard as the safety in base next to McKinney, I wasn't super stunned by it. And then even in the second half, when it was Evan Williams, I wasn't stunned by that either, because they had an 11-point lead at that point in time. It was almost like, to me, they were like, we're going to play in base at this point. If you're going to, like, at the beginning of the second half, but we have an 11-point lead, we'd rather have our better cover safety back there now, because we're not quite as concerned with you running the football. I don't know if that's the case or not. It could have easily been that he gave up a couple completions and they're like, we're just going Evan the rest of the way. But that at least was something to me that I thought was feasible, even going into the game before it ever happened.
yeah, I think that was something that popped in my mind, not about the safeties necessarily, but about Hopper too. Where it's like, hey, look, if we're going to play 4-3 at this point, like, I'd rather have McDuffie not be the guy who's having to line up if, there's 2 tight ends on the same side and 2 receivers over there, right? Like, I don't want McDuffie to have to be the guy in the slot. Hopper can move a little bit better, all that stuff. So I get it. Again, it's week 1. I'm not making broad brushstroke conclusions, but they are playing around with those 2 positions. I think that's interesting. The other lineup thing I think is interesting just in the context of injuries. Zach Tom. So they rotated in Jordan Morgan at right guard, and he got a couple snaps at left guard when Banks ended up going out, right?
Yep.
But even once Tom was injured and Ryan was in the game at right guard, so there was this availability for Jordan Morgan to come into the game, right? He didn't play right tackle. That was Kennard and then Anthony Belton for like 3 plays. So if Tom is out, I don't think Morgan is going to be out. I think it's probably going to be Kennard, and then maybe Belton rotates in a little bit or something like that. But I really don't think it's going to be Morgan. When Tom dropped out this summer, it was Belton who subbed in for him. To my knowledge, Morgan has only played like left tackle, left guard, and right guard throughout training camp. So it doesn't seem like he's gotten a ton of reps at right tackle this year. So I don't think that's going to be the sub. And, people might be miffed about that because we talk about best 5, all those things. I think Morgan at minimum is probably part of our best 6, right? So like if Tom is out, you'd hope that he steps up and becomes a full-time starter, but I think they're just going to keep the rotation going on at right guard.
I think so too. And I think Kennard probably played well enough too that he kind of earned that spot. I thought he mostly filled in well. And it was interesting though, when Kennard just went in right away. I guess apparently maybe they didn't want to mix it up. We'll see if on the short week they maybe change that up, but there's a lot in flux too with Aaron Banks being out as well. And they could just need him at left guard. So I have a feeling they're going to practice the majority of the time with Walker, Morgan, and then Jenkins, Ryan, and Kennard as their starters. And then if they get Tom, they'll just put Tom in at right tackle for Kennard, obviously, if he's good to go. And if they get Banks, they'll put him at left guard and then have Morgan go back to the rotation at right guard with Sean Ryan. That'd be my expectation at least, but you never quite know with how they put their best 5 guys out there when they've got a little bit of time to prepare. But I do think that ends up being the case.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of the timeline of the game right now, right? So we're recording this on Monday night, barely Monday night for Andy, almost Tuesday morning.
Yep. Per usual.
Is today a Friday for them?
So Tuesday would be a Friday, Wednesday would be a Saturday, okay. Thursday would be a Sunday. Yep.
So Monday would have been a Thursday.
Yep.
Right. So in a normal game week, they would have already had 2 practices. They didn't practice today.
Nope.
Right. So like that's how quick this turnaround is. So like when we're talking about all these options and stuff, it's kind of Doug. You're putting out fires with this quick of a turnaround, especially this early in the season, all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different roads, a lot of things could go right now.
You see Banks's injury, how he got rolled up on his ankle? Didn't look pretty.
I didn't see it. I just noticed that he was out. Like that was
yeah.
Really
when I was going through and grading the tape today, so I thought about posting it, but I'm just like, what's the point? Yeah, he got rolled up on from behind right on the ankle. It didn't look great. So hopefully it's. I'm not saying that it looked like anything serious or anything like that. I'm just saying like anytime you see a player get rolled up on like that, you're just like, that's not ideal. So hopefully it's nothing crazy there. How did you think he played, by the way?
Banks? I thought he played better than whatever his PFF grade was.
I don't know what his PFF. I haven't looked at it yet. I finished grading him
40 or something.
I can actually tell you. I got it right here. I'll pull it up in a second. I had a positive grade on him though. I'm almost positive. Actually, hold on. Let me before I say something stupid.
The pass protection was incredible. Man.
Yes,
truly incredible for what the Lions were trying to do and pin their ears back and really just stress out the interior of that offensive line. Like Jordan Love pretty much had like a 3-foot cement wall all around him, and
yep,
I can't believe it. Like I can't believe we picked up so much in pass protection. That was an amazing performance from them. Obviously, you would hope you get a little bit more push in the run game and stuff, but they were clogging so much stuff up. That was kind of a tough ask for the offensive line in this game, especially with kind of the way the Lions personnel works out. Like Davenport and Hutchinson aren't small defensive ends. All the Lions defensive tackles are guys who can basically play nose tackle. And the linebackers are blitzing too. So like, How do you really run against that effectively? You can't. You got to bomb them. You got to throw the ball. The Packers did that. They picked up the blitz, and then you got them out of their blitz script, and they say, okay, we're just going to straight rush. Now you're putting linebackers in conflict. They can't blitz and hit the gap instantly. And that's when Josh Jacobs, second half of the game is finally able to kind of get off a little bit. So I thought the offensive line in the context of what that game was, were amazing. Loved it.
I had a ever so slight negative grade on Aaron Banks, basically a neutral grade on him. But I didn't know what the PFF grade was. I didn't look at it, but I saw like people in the comments and stuff of like, is he just a huge bust? Like, is he a waste? I'm like, dude, I watched it. He was fine. He was more than fine at left guard. I didn't have any major issue with it whatsoever. Like I said, I thought I had pretty much a neutral grade on him overall. But yeah, it seems very aggressive to have like a 40 level grade on him from that game. I wouldn't agree with that at all. But a couple other ones
you just get like edged a lot more when teams are blitzing you, right? Yeah. And I don't think I just think you're gonna have a lower PFF grade if teams blitz against you. Like I would like to see PFF grades
blitz and non-blitz.
Yeah, like pass protection numbers, right? Like how do you grade when it's 4 pass rushers versus 5 pass rushers versus 6 pass rushers, right?
Yep.
And if those numbers aren't the same across the board, then you have an issue where the defense is basically dictating what your grade is going to be, right? So
Yep.
that's not really in the power of the player. It's just those are the positions that you're kind of put in and stuff. So
No, I totally agree. What did you think of? What did you think of like the two running back sets where like the Chris Brooks is going in motion and then like coming back in motion, kind of almost doing like the speed motion, but in the backfield?
I don't know. Like they didn't, because at first I was like, are they trying to give him like a pseudo jet sweep? Is that what we're
I
trying to
think
do here?
so here's my I think they're gonna do something like because they did the little thing where they got him in the flat, right? I think there's a piece of this that they were trying to set up that. I think they're eventually gonna set up a Marshawn Lloyd like wheel route off of that, where they like, he does something in the flat and then he goes like up on a wheel or something. I don't know. All I'll say is this: when Matt LaFleur has something like that in his pocket, like he's gonna set that thing up for maybe even like 3-4 weeks, and then like all of a sudden there's gonna be, it's going to be Lloyd in there, and they're just like, oh, that guy usually blocks or goes into the flat, and then Lloyd's going to like fire out and then go up, and it's going to be probably open, and whether they hit it or not, we'll see. But I just have a feeling there's going to be something off of that at some point. Hey, friends, we are back for week 2, Packers Commanders. It's going to be here before you know it, Thursday Night Football. And what would it be if we didn't have our sleeper picks in? So let's get those in right here, right now. I love the selections this week. The first one, maybe why I love it so much. I'm going Jordan Love, more than 1.5 passing yard. Simple enough, right? This is why I love sleeper so freaking much. Feel pretty confident about this one. Moving on to number 2, Matthew Golden, more than 32.5 receiving yards. Yes, with Green Bay's wide receivers, you never quite know what you're going to get, who's going to be targeted more. I feel like Green Bay is going to utilize Matthew Golden more. I feel like they're going to throw the ball more. And even if he does only get a couple targets, he could take one of those targets, and have more than 32.5 receiving yards on just that one target alone. So feel good about that one. And then from a Washington standpoint, I am going with Terry McLaurin, more than 51.5 receiving yards. I think Washington's going to throw the ball quite a bit in this air raid offense. I think Terry McLaurin's going to be often targeted. Yes, Green Bay's done a good job of holding down star receivers, but I think Terry McLaurin will get his in this game and go more than 51.5 receiving yards. So in totality, Jordan Love, more than 1.5 passing yard. Matthew Golden, more than 32.5 passing or receiving yards, I should say. And then Terry McLaurin, more than 51.5 receiving yards as well. Of course, use promo code PACKADAY and you're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And again, use code PACKADAY. What are you waiting for?
They also use it to get him ahead of steam on, kickouts, basically on like the backside of like inside zone and stuff, split zone, all that stuff. So, you're setting him full head of steam into a defensive end's ankles, basically to just try to get him on the ground on that play. That was cool. And then they did a lot of weird motion stuff with the back, and you're seeing this a lot in the NFL. It's not necessarily the Shanahan stuff, because this has kind of happened like the last 2 years where you make that push call on the running back, and he's still the depth of a running back, but he's almost like out as like a slot receiver, and then he ends up coming back very quickly, and it's just basically a really quick man zone tell. And one of the benefits with that is not only is it a man zone tell whether a linebacker follows him, the linebacker who's in coverage is following him. So which one, if two linebackers are bluffing the blitz, which one of them is actually coming, right? So, maybe that helped them in pass protection and stuff too. They're doing some creative stuff. We saw an RPO, real deal downfield RPO. We saw one of these in the preseason. We didn't catch it, but it was right there. That's interesting. If they can get into that game,
behind him?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just like a little glancer in. I can't remember. I only watched the offense from the broadcast view at this point. But yeah, I mean, definitely some wrinkles. I mean, the run game is kind of what we expected it to be. It's a lot of Mansky. You're not going to see a whole lot of outside zone with 330-pound dudes blocking. It's a lot more, counter game. We're doing down blocks and we're trying to cave in people's heads, create space, and then have some pullers that get up to the linebacker level. Nothing too nuts. Still don't know if I love their man answer being 9 balls, just throwing the fade, but it is what it is.
Yeah, the one to read on the fade, I thought Jordan threw an awesome ball
Yeah,
on
that
that
was
one.
great. The Romeo one down the left sideline, though, I was like, that one's covered.
That one's covered. I feel like I don't know. Romeo felt like awkward, like falling backwards somehow, or like I wanted him to go up and make a play on it. I don't know. It just felt like an awkward play, but I like the throw to Reed a lot. But yes, I don't know that I
It
love
was
the
weird
swoosh in there.
because Romo on the broadcast was like, Tucker Kraft is kind of like coming open late over the middle, in man coverage and stuff. And I was like, they gave us the most like cover one pre-snap call you could ever get, like even after motion, all this stuff. Because I think the back motioned over, or maybe it was Kraft who motioned over. It was a non-receiver who motioned, and the safety went with him. Like everyone should have known it was cover one at that point. And Love was just like, I'm throwing this fade no matter what. And I don't love fades enough to
I
want to
agree
live
with
in
that.
that world.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yeah, hopefully they can upgrade that just a little bit. But if you are going to throw that fade to Reed, I don't know that he could have thrown it in a better spot for him to go make that play too. What did you think of Jordan overall? The two turnover worthy plays were very interesting back to back, and I thought
Back to
outside of
back.
that, just like let's get it out of the system here in one fell swoop. And then he had the miss to Reed on the RPO. He had the miss early to Tucker Kraft, where Kraft had like the deep corner route.
That one hurt.
Sailed on him.
That one hurt me.
Yeah, just sailed on him. So two kind of misses from an accuracy standpoint, and then the two turnover worthy plays, and then a pretty much like flawless game outside of that.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That's what I think. I mean, he had a couple like "what the hell are you doing" plays, and a couple like I know you could throw a better ball than that, but then outside of that, I mean, kind of blacked out. It was funny because I looked at the stats after the game, and man, the Packers just control the flow of the game and sort of like slow it down so much by how they play on both sides of the ball, where offensively, even when the run wasn't working, they were like, we got to check though, right? Like we got to run at least once on first and second down. On the defensive side, just having that kind of like umbrella style defense where you're just keeping everything in front of you and you're rallying and tackling and stuff. It just shortened games so much that I was like, yeah, man, like Jordan threw the ball all over the field today. And then I checked the box score and I was like, he had 188 passing yards. That's it? Really?
Yep.
And it just feels weird because it's so slowed down. This is what I always try to like tell fantasy people when they're like, what receiver do I want from the Packers? I'm like, probably none of them, dude. None of them are going to get fed consistently, and they don't really want to pass the ball that much. Like, they don't want to be in these games where they're throwing 350 yards. That's not what it is under LaFleur. Like, they want to grind this thing down to a pulp, get an early lead like they did it against the Lions, and then just basically like blow the whistle and be like, game is over. We did it.
Get as much time off the clock as quickly as possible is yes, very much part of it. No, I think, just exactly that for Jordan. Some really, really good stuff. Just a couple of those moments he'd like to have back, but I think it's a good building block starting for the obviously the first game this year, and hopefully something that they can even get better on moving forward. But I overall like the way that he played. I think those are kind of my takeaways on offense. We obviously talked about, well, let's talk about Parsons. Just we haven't dug into him too. Like the fact that we've got 37 minutes, we already talked some of the bizarro stuff is very on brand for us. But let's talk a little bit about Micah. What did you see from his sort of impact that he had on the rest of the defense?
There were a lot of times he was getting double teamed, especially in pass protection, and you could see the communication pre-snap where Love is like, let's make sure we get two on him when he's lining up a defensive tackle and stuff like that. I thought he won quick, like 4 or 5 times in ways that we haven't seen Packers win quick since probably Clay. And again, I don't think that he's necessarily full football shape yet. So, stocks are only going to go up on him. They seem to call it the cheetah package. So I will be calling it the cheetah package. The LVN Rashawn Gary and Parsons all on the field at the same time.
Yep.
For the most part, they had LVN play that defensive tackle role, but they did get Micah in there twice and Rashawn Gary in there once in the spots. You're probably only going to see it like once every 10 plays in a normal game where they're all on the same field together. It's really just a nickel look where they take out one of the defensive tackles and they put in an extra defensive end. That's kind of how it works right now. Micah didn't play any linebacker in this game. I think if, base down, stuff like that, if they're going to be able to get those three guys on the field all at the same time, it probably has to involve Micah Parsons playing probably the Sam linebacker role. He did that a lot in Dallas, but I understand why in a 10-game turnaround, you probably don't want to teach him three different positions, really, because he's already doing some of the defensive tackle stuff. I wonder if that'll happen down the line, but again, I don't know what their plan is for him. Playing a lot more nickel than he is base defense right now. Again, I think that kind of makes sense. Yep. I think in normal games, they're probably going to play nickel 2/3 of the time. This game was a little bit weird because they were playing base a whole ton on the front end, which is why you only saw Micah Parsons get one snap in the first quarter. And then in the back end, it was all nickel because they had already just built that lead, right? Which is how you get Micah Parsons playing 13 of the last 16. So I still think that we're in sort of passing downs mode with Micah Parsons in general. Now, with that being said, the Packers' next opponent is the Washington Commanders, which they're one of the most spread football teams that you're going to see at the NFL level. So maybe he still gets some looks there. But if they played him more than they thought that they wanted to in week one, and you have that quick turnaround, rest and all that stuff is going to be a huge deal. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not in their facility. So I can't tell you how they're going to approach that. But that's kind of, that's how they use them. Super excited. I mean, buddy, I don't know how many times in life I have been so elated to be living in the past like 3 seconds as when Micah Parsons comes around that corner and you watch him just hunt down Jared Goff like it's like a wildlife documentary, right? Like a lion after the gazelle. And then you just see the entire one. First of all, Rashawn Gary's hands are up as soon as he sees Micah Parsons turn around the corner, and he's like, he's got him, even though Goff has like a 5-yard lead on him. And then the entire sideline just absolutely erupts. Like, what a beautiful moment. We needed that. That was great. We could just point at that for whenever anyone is like first round picks. I don't care. Look at this. Look at this. This was great.
I talked about this a little bit of it would have been cool if on one of those plays where he just beats Penei Sewell immediately, if he just obliterates Jared Goff or whatever, that would have been fun. I wouldn't have been upset with that, but to be able to experience it in real time where you saw it coming for a good 3 seconds ahead of time and you could see it coming and the anticipation just builds and builds and builds. And everyone besides Jared Goff knew exactly what was happening. And we're all just grinning. And then it happens and the sign explodes and the whole stadium explodes. It was perfect. You could not have asked for a better moment.
It's like watching a horror movie and you're like, no, don't open that door. Don't open that door. There's a monster behind that door. It's like Jared Goff is running out of the pocket and you're like, oh my God, he doesn't think anyone is fast enough to catch up to him. He has no idea the big bad monster is right behind him. And then just gets blown up. Honestly, shout out to Jared Goff and his teeny tiny little hands for holding on to the football there. Right?
And getting up and everything else. Yeah, no question.
Because if I'm getting hit like that fast, ball's out. Ball's out.
That
if I'm not expecting it.
Yeah. Of all the things that happened in that game, That's one of the ones I wouldn't want to be involved in the least, is being chased down from Micah Parsons from behind and having that specific play happen. No question about it. Kudos to Jared Goff. How they get up from some of that stuff is really remarkable. I do want to talk to you about Washington before we get there. I would be remiss not to ask you, Justis Mosqueda, anything stand out to you on special teams?
Brooks played really well, and Neiman played really well. I think everyone saw the punt, which, by the way, Whalen, that punt goes like 40. That punt goes like 75 yards, and that's why his gunners weren't underneath it for that play. I mean, you could see it on that tackle, just the difference of speed between him and McDuffie, and you're like, oh yeah, that's why you're a special teams ace, and McDuffie is a guy who plays special teams, right? Katana Ladapo was a starter. That was something that we expected, right? He was kind of like their super sub last year. Is now a starter. The guys who started the core four: Brooks, McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, Nyman. I still haven't gotten the name down on that one. And then Bo Melton. LVN still playing a ton of special team snaps. Outside of that, nothing crazy. The one thing I will point out, so like quarterbacks, receivers, offensive linemen don't really play teams for the Packers at all, right? So let's look at the backups at all the other positions, right? Everyone is a starter on at least one special teams unit other than Emmanuel Wilson, Brenton Cox, Nasir Stackhouse, and then both of the reserve corners, right? Hayden and Robinson. Robinson's not even on the 53. He was a practice squad call-up. So Wilson, Cox, Stackhouse, Haddon. I don't think there's any sort of plan to get Stackhouse on special teams, but I think the other three are pressure points, right? Having that third running back. Chris Brooks was getting single back looks ahead of Emmanuel Wilson in this game. Wilson basically got in to play that one snap at the end as, a ceremonial like sacrifice, right? Hey, do you want to call timeouts or not? Outside of that was a non-factor in this game. That's a pressure point on this roster, not just from a 53, but like the game day. Brent Cox, obviously he had the injury and stuff like that, but I think Barron Sorrell is going to play a lot of special teams for this team whenever he's healthy enough to come in. So I could see Cox being a healthy scratch, and then Haddon just saying like, oh, we got an extra defensive back. Yeah, we don't really need him. Was kind of weird to me. I don't think he's going to get moved on from, because the Packers are going to need 5 cornerbacks on this team. But Wilson and Cox are the two I'm circling, where I'm like, once Sorrell and Marshawn Lloyd come back, I could see the team definitely swapping those guys out and figuring it out in a different way.
Well, the other one's obviously too, a couple of the inactives. Ben Sims not active at all. That could be one if you need an extra spot at some point. And then Donovan Jennings, once you get a little bit healthier on the offensive line, potentially there as well. But it'll be interesting to see how they kind of go about doing all of that. But there will be roster gymnastics, Justice. It will happen. We could even see some this week. We did see a running back transaction today. Pierre Strong going to the practice squad. So long, Israel Abanikanda. We hardly knew ye.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. That much outside of probably they're cool at kick returner. Savion probably did enough that they were like, look, we're probably not going to need to call up Abanikanda to play football games. So if that's the case, I mean, that's really all kind of he did from a special teams perspective. So, if you want to have options, if a Wilson gets hurt or something like that, and you're like, look, this guy's at least got to be able to contribute somewhere other than returner, I think the Pierre stuff starts to make a little bit more sense. So
makes sense. All right. Packers Commanders, Thursday Night Football. What immediately stands out to you? What are you looking for? Well, let's go through the injury report really quick. So this is the updated injury report. Quay Walker added with a quadricep injury and did not participate if there was a practice as well at the end of the day. But Zane Anderson, hypothetical practice. Zane Anderson would have been limited. Aaron Banks would not have participated. Brenton Cox would not have participated. Matthew Golden and Nate Hobbs both would have been limited. Jordan Love would have been full. Bo Melton would not have participated. Micah Parsons limited. Jaden Reed would not have participated. Barron Sorrell was limited. Zach Tom and Quay Walker would not have participated. Daniel Whelan was a full participant, and Dontavian Wicks was a limited, or would have been a limited participant. That's your injury report, Justice.
Yeah, I got to see what it looks like on Tuesday because, that's
we have
so
no
much up in the air.
We have no access to practice this week at all. None. So we will not see who is practicing at all or anything like that. It is just blind following whatever the Packers tell us on the injury report.
1 o'clock, baby. 1 o'clock.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right. So going back to Commanders, Packers, what are we watching for here?
I really want to look at like what the Commanders' plan is going to be, because we've mentioned it already a little bit, right? Where, if you can kind of wear out this Packers defensive line in the state that they're in right now, right, it can kind of be an issue. But their interior isn't great. Like they traded for Laramie Tunsil. They drafted Josh Connerly. They should be solid tackles for them, but the interior offensive line isn't great. And then, you're talking about Austin Eckler and a 7th-round rookie who are going to be running the ball. Neither of those are probably every down ball carriers for this team. Jaden Daniels is going to want to scramble around. I think you don't really want to have him play with like a bunch of tight ends. Zach Ertz is a pass catcher, and he's their number 1 tight end. And they really don't like it's John Bates and Ben Sinnott behind him. Like, I think this is a good matchup for the defense. Like in terms of kind of covering up their weaknesses. Now you're still going to have to deal with, Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin, but the Lions had players. They had two $28 million per year receivers, if you can believe it, on that team. Defensively, like the Bobby Wagner perception versus hype stuff is crazy to me. I don't think Bobby Wagner has been nearly the same linebacker for like the last 4 or 5 years, but he still keeps getting all these accolades because he has like high tackle stats and stuff like that. There's no one that I'm like scared of on this Commanders defense as like a singular person. Now I know Dan Quinn has like has these guys playing with their hair on fire and all that stuff, but like Quinn's defense is really basic. Like he just wants to kind of like sit back and play in cover 3, and then he'll change it up and play cover 1. Matt has familiarity with that. Matt has cooked the Cowboys whenever Dan Quinn was calling plays for that team. They were together in Atlanta, all that stuff. I kind of find it hard to believe that Matt wouldn't have a great plan coming into this game, that he could just like, oh yeah, here were the other 5 game plans that worked against Dan Quinn. These will still work because he's still doing the same things. The other thing about the Commanders that I think is super underrated right now, they are the opposite of the Packers on like the age spectrum. They're like the oldest team in the NFL by far. Nuking draft picks to pick up veterans and trades and all that stuff. You're going to need a pass rush plan for like Von Miller coming off of the bench, but he's not going to be an every down player for him. Like Payne and Kinlaw are pretty good, but nothing nuts. I saw like Doris Armstrong had like 9 pressures.
9 pressures.
I got to watch the tape and see how the heck he got that, because he wasn't that whenever I've seen him. I don't know if lightning strikes twice. So I'm not super afraid of this team. I'm a person, I think we've talked about this before, because we went through like title odds or something like that at one point during the offseason. I think I'm like way lower on the Commanders than most people. Like, I don't know if they're going to get back to the playoffs. Like we've seen Dan Quinn teams catch up quick, and then it's just like, this is what your peak is. Now you're paying all those guys, and it just starts declining from like year 1 on, because everyone knows what you are. And you don't have that shot in the arm of sort of like the culture change. So I don't see where they're going to get this, like, I don't see a lot of places where talent is just going up, right? I see a lot of like aged players, a lot of veterans that they're playing, some guys on the decline like Bobby Wagner and stuff. I think they have issues. with like, you're not going to run inside zone with Austin Eckler, and you want to run inside on this Packers team right now because of their defensive line depth and stuff like that. And it's just like, this team isn't really built to take advantage of what what you got to do to beat this Packers team. So I'm pretty confident, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you that I think they're going to have kind of their season this year, like the Texans and Packers had a little bit last year. They might be playoff teams, but I'm not super confident of what they're actually going to do in that in the playoffs or whatever. But I still think it's going to be a good game. But maybe I'm too confident, but I kind of really like the Packers in this one. Which again, I don't know how I feel about being confident about it, but I actually bizarrely feel very confident about this game.
I'm hyped. Super Bowl of the week. Right?
It is Super Bowl
every week moving forward. Super Bowl of the week.
We're all in. We're absolutely
and then what? Browns
all in.
After this?
Yeah, who are going to be 0-2 because they play the Ravens this week, and the Ravens are going to just probably go completely bananas after this last week. So, yeah, they're going to be a very desperate team in week 3. I'll say that right now.
Yeah, the Lions game or the Ravens game, and then the Bears game that we just finished watching are the two where I'm like, how'd you guys not win that one, man? That's crazy.
The Vikings no-showed for 3 quarters of that game, and the Bears still couldn't put it away, which is just remarkable.
McCarthy had a negative NEA. So net yards per attempt, you get minus 45 for throwing an interception. They include your sack yards, all that stuff. It higher correlation to winning football games than passer rating, all that. In that metric, like I think we were at least close to halftime. McCarthy would have been better dirting the ball every single play.
And then he threw a pick 6.
Yeah. Like, dude, how'd you let him do that? And why didn't you kick the ball out of the end zone?
I think he tried and just didn't get it there. But then, like, if you're not sure, dude, kick that thing out of bounds. Like, that is just absurd.
Kicker, man. You gotta
better be able to. Cairo Santos.
Yeah.
Oy vey. Yeah. No, perfect end of the week. I hate that the Vikings were the one that, got the spoils out of it, but ending a perfect week 1 with a total Bears collapse at the end. Not a bad way to go out for week 1. That was a very entertaining week 1 of football. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it was fun. I thought scoring was up relatively. Like, you usually see like games are just like sloppy week 1 a lot of the times just because the offenses aren't clicking, and it seemed like the offenses were clicking a little bit more.
Totally agreed.
Outside of the Miami Dolphins. Oh my God. I thought the Colts were going to be horrendous. And I'm like, they still might be horrendous, and the Dolphins might just be that much worse.
Mike McDaniel, this year's Robert Saleh, being coming in as a special assistant to Matt LaFleur at some point. So get your Mike McDaniel glasses out, because he's gonna be on the Packers sideline before we know it.
Let's get it done. Let's do it.
I'm all in. Anything else, Justice, before we get out of here? Anything I missed? Anything else you wanted to get to?
Not that I can think of. Kobe Wooden, we should probably talk about him a little bit. I don't think he was great in like one-on-one scenarios, but I think he was good enough. He's definitely very athletic for the nose tackle position. They're stunting him a lot. I don't know how much, especially with the they move stuff around so much from pre-snap to post-snap now that I just don't know how many times Wooden is even going to be asked to just like line up in the A gap, take on the double team. Like, he's just not going to do that a ton. So I think they can live with it. I think the Stackhouse stuff kind of makes sense with the way that they're going to use him if they wanted him as like a situational changeup. Like, I get the benefits that he has over Brinson, but I just don't think that Stackhouse's snaps are ever going to be super high. Like, in this game, they basically used him exclusively short yardage and in the red zone. They're not giving him any base down looks, and it's one reason why they only had like a 3-man rotation at defensive tackle for most of the game. So I think if anyone ever gets banged up on the D line, I think Brinson will be called up to the game day roster, and you're going to see Brinson take a lot more snaps than Stackhouse. But as long as those top 3 are healthy, I think they're cool with just having Stackhouse as sort of that like super situational player.
there would be times last year where you would see TJ Slayton in like the 40s and like the high 30s for snaps, although it was relatively few and far between. But a lot of times it was 19, 15, 18, 16, 19, 13, 17, 17. And that's probably even higher than what they want Stackhouse to be. What was he at, like 8 or 9 this week?
He's at
So
like 8, yeah.
yeah, I think in most situations they probably want them in like 16 or less, and if you can hold them to about 8 to 10 snaps, you're probably doing well where you don't need them a ton, and the other team's not running the ball right down your throat, and you have to use them a bunch. But I think in general they'd probably like to keep them as even lesser used than where TJ Slayton was in the majority of the games last year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, again, I wouldn't be surprised if like 8 was the normal kind of moving forward.
55.4 grade for TJ Slayton, week 1, 34 snaps for the Cincinnati Bengals, by the way, per PFF. So I don't know what that means, but I think Clark was in like the 60s too, right?
He had I didn't check.
He had a 60.7 grade on 40 snaps for Kenny Clark. So that's where you're at. Yeah, we'll see.
Our run defense looked fine. I don't know about the Cowboys, but
no issues with Green Bay's run defense against a very, very talented Lions offense, or I should say at least their running backs, Tate Ratledge and Christian Mahogany, not the greatest of days.
Yeah, young guys. I think that interior offensive line will be better next time we see them.
I think so too. I think Green Bay's run offense will be better too as they continue to go on throughout the season and gel a little bit more, hopefully as soon as this week. All right, Justis, I'll get you out of here. Where can we find you, my friend?
AckenPackingCompany.com. We're going to try to catch up on everything in a very short period of time, breaking down everything that happened on Sunday and previewing everything that's going to happen on Thursday in a very small window that I'm very excited about and love that it's happening at the beginning of the year.
It is one of those where you're just like, oh, God, like this has to be right away. But it will be nice immediately after Thursday of like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, getting all that stuff done. And then next week being able to catch our breath a little bit as we get ready for Cleveland in week 3 on Sunday the following. So we'll catch up eventually. But yeah, this first week is very chaotic to say the least. But at least it's coming off a big win and we've got a lot of exciting things to talk about. So I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a crunch this week, but we'll talk to you again. You don't have to deal with me until next Wednesday. You've got like almost 10 days Andy list. So yeah, you're good to go, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
Micah Parsons turnaround. 10 days.
Yes,
10 days to get
exactly.
ready.
Find him at JUMOSQ and, of course, over on acmepackingcompany.com. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL, of course, at Pack a Day Podcast as well. We'll see you guys next week together. I will see you guys back here tomorrow. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.